3 very interesting, exciting papers, including both the best paper and honorable mention. So let's start with the first one, Experiences from the Field, Unify Rewards, a cryptocurrency loyalty program by the Loyalty X team. Okay, our speaker is Phil.
Hi everyone. Okay, so I'm a professional loyalty program designer. That is actually a job, believe it or not. I spend a lot of my time working with blue chip companies, either designing them a loyalty program from scratch or helping them to improve their existing loyalty program, which is usually pretty crappy. So what I'm going to talk about today is a research project that we ran at University of New South Wales, trying to invent a better quality loyalty program. Usually when I start with my clients, the first thing that I say to them is, can we not talk about the L word? Because loyalty is actually something that you're unlikely to get most of your customers to feel towards your brand. You know, there is some big brands out there like Apple, for instance, where you do get a lot of people very loyal to that brand, but your average brand is unlikely to get the majority of your customers loyal. So instead what I say is, let's talk about engagement, because although you might not be able to get most of your customers to be loyal to you, you can actually get most of your customers to want to engage with you a little bit more, and ultimately that's going to be a lot more profitable for you and a lot more satisfying for your customers overall. So the reason why I'm introducing this is because it becomes very important as we talk about this throughout the presentation. As a loyalty program designer, I join a lot of loyalty programs. So at last count, I think I'm a member of over 140 different loyalty programs. I've studied another couple of hundred that I haven't even bothered to join, particularly ones that are overseas. I get a lot of emails, not surprisingly. And so I've had the opportunity to really look deeply into the industry and see what's working well and what is not working well. Generally, there's a lot of problems with the loyalty industry. There's a lot of issues. People are joining and their expectations aren't being met. And there's 5 main problems. So the first one is disillusion. So I get the opportunity to sit in and listen to a lot of qualitative market research sessions. And often what I hear, particularly from younger people, is I joined a program, I earned points, I didn't get any value out of it. And so I just threw the card in the bin, and all loyalty programs are like that, so I don't bother to join anymore. The other big challenge that we have is big loyalty programs, particularly frequent flyer programs, have been shown over time to devalue how much their points are worth. So a great example is Qantas in Australia. So I used to work for Qantas back in 2008. I joined them. I worked with them for 4 years. And when I joined, I actually helped launch the Qantas Frequent Flyer store, where you could exchange points for over 2,000 products. And back in those days, a $100 department gift card, a department store gift card, was 13,500 points. Now, a $100 department store gift card is 16,700 points. So it's 25% more expensive to get that same gift card. So the program over time has devalued how much the points are worth in order to increase their profitability, and that leads to a lot of disengagement from the member base. The other big challenge is saturation and homogenization. Everyone has a loyalty program. Every time you go into a retailer, you get asked, do you want to join my program? I always say yes. Most people don't, because they've really had enough of it. But also, all the programs seem to feel like they're exactly the same. You join the program, you earn some points, you may get a reward or not. But the very worst aspect of it is the marketing assault. So you go in, you buy a shirt, you join a program, and next thing you know, you're getting 5 emails a week from a retailer trying to get you to buy more of their product and interact in a certain way. Now, when you've joined 140 loyalty programs, that marketing assault's pretty intense. But for the average person on the street who even has joined, say, between 5 and 7 programs, which is the average, you're still getting 10 to 15 emails a week, which is quite a lot, particularly if you're only transacting with that company on a regular basis. The other main problem that loyalty programs have is the points or the miles. So the main currency of the program tends to expire, which is a real problem in terms of maintaining the value within the program. And the last one is restricted utility. So you earn points over here, you earn points over there, some more points over there. But the only way you can spend those points is within the walled garden or the ecosystem of that particular retailer. So if they don't actually have any rewards that you want or that appeal to you, then that currency is pretty useless. So that's a big challenge as well. So what I spend a lot of time doing is fantasizing about what a really good loyalty program could be. And that was really the foundation for developing LoyaltyX, which is loyalty exploration and looking at different ways that a program could be designed and created to resolve all of these issues. So the ideal program would deliver really genuine value to all of its members. It would be differentiated so that if a company implements this type of program, it's actually going to help them set themselves aside from the rest of the competition and stand out. That would be a nice one. People, rather than being under marketing assault constantly, are actually being able to be selective about the types of promotions that they choose to attend to, and they're rewarded for that attention. The currency never expires, and there's flexibility in terms of how they redeem that currency as well. So this is the pathway that I've been on for the last few years, trying to find that perfect loyalty program. Now, the light bulb moment for me came a couple of years ago when I was introduced to cryptocurrencies. And I thought, we've got, for many years or decades, people have been searching for a digital currency that can be trusted. Now it's finally here, so is there something that we can do in using this new type of currency in a loyalty program to help solve some of these challenges? So myself and my colleagues did quite a bit of research. The first research that I did went back and did a thorough review of the history of currencies within loyalty programs. Now, what's really interesting here is the main structure of loyalty programs has actually been around for a long time, and it hasn't really changed too much. Actually, back in ancient Egypt, my wife's an Egyptologist, and she pointed this out to me. But back in ancient Egypt, they had a structure of rewarding workers that was very similar to a modern-day loyalty program. So they would have little plaster tokens that were made in the shape of a piece of bread or a jug of beer, and the workers were paid in these, and then they would be able to exchange those for the real thing. But if you had a surplus of them, you could exchange them for other products. And if you were a foreman or higher up the chain, you would actually get paid in bonuses, so very similar to a modern-day frequent flyer program. In more modern times, so in the 1700s, this is where the more modern loyalty program started to eventuate. It started in the US, so well done. It was with some merchants who started handing out copper tokens to their customers, and the customers could save up these tokens and exchange them for a reward. So, that same structure that we enter into today with the loyalty program, that hasn't changed since the 1700s. There was the Grand Union Tea Company who did direct sales to consumers via a mail order tea and coffee company, started handing out tickets as part of their loyalty program. I've actually got their 1903 catalogue, which shows some of the rewards in it, which is pretty cool. And once again, hand out tickets as you buy. You could exchange them for rewards. Then we had S&H green stamps. Is anyone here old enough to remember S&H green stamps? Yeah. So that was actually the dominant currency for 90 years, the dominant loyalty currency for 90 years. It was the first major coalition program, so S&H would go and sell their stamps to individual retailers who would then give them to their members, and they'd stick them in books, and then they could go and exchange those books either via mail order or direct at some of their rewards outlets that they had. That was a very, very successful program until the 70s when the series of recessions hit the US and it really wiped their business model out. It was pre-computers, very big overheads for this program, so it was very difficult for them to maintain it. But about that time, the US government deregulated the airline industry, created a lot of competition, and American Airlines then introduced the first currency-based frequent flyer program. And that was introducing miles in the early 80s, and then later in the 80s, in 87, Southwestern introduced points. Qantas Frequent Flyer introduced points at the same time. And since then, points and miles have been the dominant loyalty currencies that we see today, but they haven't always been. So the question that we were asking ourselves was, could the dominant loyalty currency of today, being points and miles, be replaced by a new currency such as a cryptocurrency? The second thing that we did is we looked at the economic models that support the different types of currencies. So this is a really interesting one. This is the economic model for a points and miles program. So as you can see, the supply line for this is perfectly horizontal. So what that means is the companies that are creating points and miles can really create as many as they like. It doesn't really matter because they're controlling the value of it. And so if you get an increase in demand, they just increase the quantity of it. Most of these companies now are less in the business of loyalty, and they're more in the business of point selling. So they're just printing as many points as they can, trying to sell as many as they can. Kind of like the US Treasury. Okay? So, whereas for a crypto model, it's the complete opposite. The supply line is vertical, and as you can see, if you get an increase in demand, that leads to a subsequent increase in price. So what we started thinking was, can this solve the value equation that is troubling existing loyalty programs, where people just aren't getting enough value for it to be meaningful and to drive that engagement? If you can get enough retailers on board and enough members on board and apply a finite currency to it in order to generate that ever-increasing amount of demand, then that could be quite valuable for everyone who's involved in that program. We also had a look at some of the early players. So there have been a few Bitcoin blockchain loyalty programs around for a while now. What most of them have done is started by doing an ICO, creating a coin, raising a whole heap of money, then going and building a very expensive platform, and then saying, right, we now need some members and some retailers to participate in this program. And that's where they've come unstuck, because finding the members and the retailers is actually the hard bit. So some of these early players are struggling a bit, but others are starting to make some pretty good traction. The main reason why we looked at these guys was because we wanted to understand had they actually done any research. And what we realised is that they were all out there raising large amounts of money via ICO, trying to get these programs up and running, but they hadn't actually done any research to ascertain whether individual consumers might actually be interested in earning a cryptocurrency rather than just earning standard points and miles. And so that was when we came up with the concept of running the trial at the University of New South Wales in Sydney. We created a mini rewards program called Unify Rewards. And what we did was we signed up some merchants on campus and signed up some students and staff and got them to participate in this program over a period of time. So this is the model that we used in order to collect the data. So very simply, we had some scanners set up at 12 different retailers. The consumers, the staff and the students would register via a simple web app. They would then go scan the web app when they're transacting. That would all go up into our loyalty platform. It would purchase an allocation of Ether for them and put that into their account. The reason why we used Ether and didn't create our own token was simply because it was a well-known cryptocurrency, so it was easy for us to get the word out that this was something that people could access, so it was good from a marketing perspective, plus it saved us a large amount of time and money in setting it up because we're poor researchers, so that worked quite well. This is just an example of the web app with the barcode and the scanners that we had. And in order to keep it really simple, so we didn't have to do API integration with the point of sale from the retailers, we used a simple coffee card type model. So every time that they transacted, they scanned and they earned a stamp. and when they earned 10 stamps, they earned $10 worth of Ether. So it just kept it really simple. A more complicated implementation of this would actually capture their transaction value and reward them according to how much they've spent. And I'll talk more about that one later. So we had 12 merchants, we had 177 students and staff sign up, and we ran the program over a 5-week period at the end of semester last year. So in terms of the results, it was really, really positive, like overwhelmingly positive, much more than what we thought it was going to be. All up, in order to earn at least one allocation of Ether, you had to get 10 stamps. So we had 61% of all of the participants managed to achieve that, which is a pretty phenomenal result considering it's over such a short period, and much greater engagement than what you see from most loyalty programs. In terms of how they redeemed that, so they had a few different ways that they could redeem. The first one is they could transfer the Ether into their own personal Ether wallet at the end of the trial. They could cash it out and just get a deposit straight into their bank account. They could purchase a gift card, or they could transfer it to a friend. And so this is the results there. So most chose to hold. No one wanted to transfer to a friend, so that was quite interesting. But yeah, generally the main attitude was to hold, and that's an important point which I'll come back to later. Okay, we also ran a survey at the end of the trial as well to get a sense of how they compared the idea of a crypto-based program to their favourite points-based loyalty program. And out of everyone who participated, there was only one person who didn't belong to any loyalty programs, so everyone else had very good exposure to loyalty programs. So the first one was, they gave a 78% rating for motivating them to go and spend at retailers. So what that meant was 78% of the people who responded to the survey said they actually changed their behaviour, their purchase behaviour, in order to be able to earn more Ether as part of the trial. So that was very positive. 85%, I guess this is our net promoter score rating, 85% said that if we continued the program, they would be likely to recommend it to family and friends versus 57% for their favourite program. And probably most relevant, 86% said that they found this type of program to be much more appealing than if they were earning loyalty points. Here's some of the quotes that we received as part of the survey from people. What you'll see there is really the main thing that got them excited about it was the speculative behaviour and the value fluctuations. You know, this is really important because if you're earning points or if you're earning miles, the value of what you're holding stays fairly static. Whereas if you're earning a crypto, anyone who's followed Bitcoin over the last few days will know it fluctuates pretty crazily and makes you very nervous at times. So that was really good. We also, the people who did participate actually got a pretty good bonus out of it. So the two red circles is where we started the program and where we stopped the program. And soon after that, you know, there was a big burst. It was the altcoin season, I guess you'd call it, and Ethereum went pretty crazy. And so some of the people who participated in this program earned in excess, well, you know, by the time of the peak, they had in excess of $500 worth of Ether for joining that program. So it turned out to be pretty valuable for them, which is quite good. When we sent in the research paper and we got it reviewed by the 4 reviewers who remained anonymous, but we thank you for your time, whoever you are, one of the main pieces of feedback that we got back on this research was, well, why not just provide them with cash? Okay, because really, is it any different? Okay, and it's a really good point. And it really brings us back to the first point that I talked about with respect to loyalty, which is loyalty is an outcome of enhanced engagement. So what we're really looking to do with this type of model and this type of program is deliver something that is much more engaging than points and miles and much more engaging than cash. So in terms of you know, where the engagement comes from, can I see a show of hands of people in the room who actually own crypto or trade crypto on a regular basis? So get those hands nice and high. Okay, so keep your hand up if you would, look at your crypto valuation at least a few times a day, right? So we all do it, yeah. Let's say, at least 10 times a day, okay? Now keep your hands up if you go in and check how much cash you've got in your bank account a few times a day. Right? No one does it, right? Because we know how much cash we've got. We know that the value of that cash doesn't change. It's only really relevant if you're travelling internationally. But with crypto, it's that value fluctuations, the wild fluctuations, that make it so compelling. And it's the same thing with a loyalty program. How many of us go in and check our points balance a few times a day to see if that's changed? We don't, because it doesn't change. So the really compelling element, and this is the thing that came through most loud and clear with respect to the trial feedback, was the fact that the value is fluctuating wildly and it has the potential to go up quite significantly. And that was what made it really, really exciting for the people who are involved, is that the potential is there for it to do something quite significant. So even if it was going down in valuation, they were still really excited and engaged with it, because there was that potential that it was going to do something. Now, from a loyalty program perspective, this is massively exciting, because the hardest thing is to drive that continual engagement, whether it's with an app, with a website, or just thinking about the brand. So the fact that you can get members to be checking in and thinking about that brand and thinking about what they've got there on a regular basis several times a day is a massive breakthrough, and one which has got a lot of our potential partners very excited. So the next steps for us, we've been having some really exciting conversations with some investors in the UK who are currently doing a seed funding round, with a loyalty company in Singapore, with a big real estate company in Australia. And for dinner last night, I actually met the guys who are working on the Kodak One project, which is really cool. They're based down at Venice Beach. So I'm meeting with them again tomorrow to talk through some things. But effectively what we're looking at developing is this ecosystem. So firstly, members will be able to transact at retail partners. They'll also be able to transact with 1,000 or so affiliates online, so clicking through and transacting and then earning crypto for that. They'll also be invited to store and sell their personal data, so similar to earn.com or Brave or BitClave, that type of model. Everything will be stored in their own personal digital wallet, and they've got full control over that. They can then load credit cards, so they can do a single transaction at a participating retailer and earn crypto for doing that. They can also load other crypto into the wallet as well and use that to transact. And then they can spend at retailers, sell on an exchange, or hold and speculate. So it provides that full flexibility. Now, why this is really exciting and why you guys should be excited as part of the blockchain community is because loyalty programs are going to play a very, very key role in helping to mainstream cryptocurrency ownership. And this is really important because estimates at the moment that I see is only about 1% of the total world population own any form of cryptocurrency. In order for it to be taken seriously, we need to mainstream that adoption and get that up quite significantly. But for anyone who has created an exchange account, transferred money in, then realise that you need to go to another exchange to buy the crypto that you want, and then you've got to transfer it into an Ether wallet or a Neo wallet or some other form of wallet. It's very, very complicated for the average person. Then you've got all the issues around, it's a bubble, it's not a bubble, yes, it is a bubble, so it becomes, very risky. You've got major economists coming out and saying it's a Ponzi scheme. So for the average person in the street, it's actually, quite an intimidating thing to do. With a loyalty program, all of these things can be resolved. Firstly, you can make it very easy for someone to join and to start earning. So if they can start earning accessing cryptocurrency by joining a loyalty program in the same way that they've joined other loyalty programs before, becomes very accessible. They don't need to create a wallet, they don't need to create an exchange account, they just need to put in their first name, surname, email address and a password, and they can start transacting and earning. So that's a really important one. The second thing is, it's very low risk for them, because if they're earning by spending at retailers that they were going to spend at anyway, or changing a retailer but to get the same product in order to earn, then they're not having to invest any of their own money in accessing cryptocurrency. So then if the cryptocurrency does bomb and go to zero, well, they've not actually lost anything. They've not lost any of their own investment in doing that. And the third one, and probably the most important one, is it expands the spend options. So by having a digital wallet on their phone that they can put different cryptocurrency in, particularly the main loyalty one, and be able to go and spend that and redeem that with participating retailers or any retailers, then suddenly we've got a full closed loop system there where people can access these different types of currencies and easily spend them, which makes the whole thing very seamless. So we believe loyalty's got a very, very significant role to play, and we think that this will play out more and more over the next couple of years. So can loyalty deliver a better, can blockchain deliver a better loyalty program? We think it can. So simply by swapping out the currency and not changing anything else about that program, then you can deliver much better value. You can differentiate the program in order to stand out from your competitors, and we've already seen a number of companies coming out with blockchain loyalty announcements, such as Hooters in the US, seeing big share price increases as a result of that. We can reward customers for attention, so providing them with the opportunity to view a promotion and be rewarded with cryptocurrency for viewing that promotion is a new advertising model. Crypto doesn't expire, and you can really use it anywhere that you want, so you're not stuck within this ecosystem of things that don't really appeal to you. The last thing that we're doing, and this is my last slide, one of the other things that I thought was really interesting in terms of feedback from the reviewers was around fully decentralising a loyalty program. I'm still getting my mind around whether this is possible. I do believe that in order for a loyalty program to run properly, particularly if it's across multiple retailers, you do actually need a central organisation who is facilitating setting up those different relationships and the technology, and you know, making everything run quite smoothly, providing customer care support and everything. But I am very interested to explore a fully decentralised program a lot more. I kind of believe that just by swapping out the points and miles for a cryptocurrency pretty much solves all of the inherent problems, but very interested to discuss and debate this concept with all of you during the break and see if I can pick up some interesting insights that I've not yet been able to glean. Thank you very much for your time. What, within a standard loyalty program? Or so generally for your average retailer it would be about a 1% return. It can go as high as 10% or 15%, so it's really industry specific. Yeah, so we did it. Yeah, we did make it a little bit more generous, and I guess the concept there was to make sure that because we only had a very short space of time, that people were getting a reasonable amount of ether, so that they had enough value in their account to make it meaningful to them. Certainly for a more mainstream program, they'd be able to accumulate much more value, but over a longer period of time. Yeah, look, not really. Certainly in Australia, there is major programs where you can get that sort of value in that space of time. So it's probably a bit more towards the generous end, but it's not unusual. Yep. Yep. Yeah. Yep. No, it's a good point. Look, for me, I think where I see programs working most effectively are in industries where the value offering is relatively homogenous. And if you look at where loyalty programs are being successful, that question kind of answers itself. So airlines, car rental companies, those types of industries, hotels, that type of thing. You get a lot of really good traction with programs out of that. Where the decision set becomes more complex, the application of the loyalty program and the value it can provide becomes much more diminished. So a really good example there is telecommunications companies. So a lot of them have quite good programs, but it's very questionable how much loyalty it's actually generating. Because if you're thinking about what telco to join, what handset do you get? What's the plan like? What's the contract like? How much data do you get? So there's a lot of much more complex elements to consider, and whether or not you get some loyalty benefit out of it is further down the chain. Yeah.
Yeah. Just a very quick question. You mentioned that it seems like the excitement of the currencies going up and down was a big part of the engagement. So that would suggest that loyalty programs should kind of look for the most volatile cryptocurrency out there to run their programs on. Was that something that you thought about?
Yeah, well, certainly in the lead up, Ether was being quite volatile when we did it. So yeah, we're hoping to get a lot of volatility during the trial. It actually was pretty flat, to be honest with you. But certainly. But I think the big opportunity from a pure commercial perspective is that the loyalty program creates their own token, so that then they can get the economic benefits out of that. Yep.
So in actual,
Oh, sorry.
yeah, sure. Oh. So in actually deployed system, you said, like, for example, you will give 10 Ether after you have 10 transactions, 10 stamps, right? So you will give a certain amount of cryptocurrency after the client goes and does 10 transactions, right?
Yep.
Will that rule depend or change with the price of Ether?
Yeah, good question. So I guess it's important to point out that we just used that simple mechanic for the trial so that we didn't have to do API integration into the point of sale systems. For everything that we do moving forward, it'll be based on how much they spend. But it's a really good question. So if you think about the standard...
Right now, when you sign up 50,000 miles, you're going to get, you might, 50,000 miles, 50,000 miles doesn't change. But now the value that you're getting,
Yeah, so it's one thing that it's one key difference between a crypto and a points or miles based program. So as you pointed out, if you are part of a points or miles based program, you go and spend $1 and you're told you'll get 1 point for that dollar, right? Okay, or you spend $100, you get 100 points or 100 miles. With crypto, you can't really use that mechanic because the amount that you earn is going to change. So therefore, you need to talk about it in terms of percentages. So it might be if you spend $100, you'll get $5 worth of tokens, which are bought real time on the exchange at whatever that market rate is. Yeah. So it always does fluctuate, which means this week you could spend $100 and earn 10 tokens. Next week you spend $100 and you only earn 5 tokens because it's doubled in value. But the 10 tokens you earned last week are now worth double what they were. Yeah.
If it doesn't change, then you can just, if it goes up, you can go and spend 10 times and then you get more.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yep.
I think you kind of answered my question, but who's providing the liquidity for the crypto, and are you guys going to be using like your own balance sheet to park any of it?
Yeah, so I guess we're looking at a number of different programs, and they might all follow different models. But at a basic level, we would look to do an ICO, so it'd create a certain amount of tokens. We'd sell a percentage of that as part of ICO. The remainder we would keep to do 2 things. So the first one is we'd keep a reserve, which would kind of act a bit like a reserve bank or a treasury in order to smooth out currency fluctuations. So if it's going up too much, we might sell some on the market to bring it down. If it's coming down too much, we might buy some back. just to keep it a bit stable. Everything else that we would use for those would actually be to incentivise retailers. So we would give bonuses to retailers for signing up members in order to drive acquisitions. But also it gives us the opportunity to go to retailers who have an existing program and say, actually, if you transition across to our program, we'll give you a big bunch of tokens in order to join. So we've got a big pool of acquisition funds that we can use there.
Oh, so you guys are going to make a native token, not Ether.
Exactly, yeah. So we'd look to create our own token. Yep. We need a blockchain platform that can do relatively real-time transactions for fairly low transaction fees, because the amounts that will be earned will be fairly small but on quite a rapid rate. So it probably won't be Ethereum that we use. It'll probably be a different platform.
But you're looking to launch it on the Ethereum network, to create the ICO on the Ethereum network?
No, that was just for the trial.
Do it completely separate.
Yeah,
separate, like a separate thing.
yes, correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why would you want to do a separate thing?
Because for the commercial model, so that you've got a big amount of tokens which you can provide in order to build value into the program. Yeah.
This has been very great questions and discussions, but in the interest of time, let's take the discussion offline. I'm sure everybody is looking forward to join the program.
Yeah, great. Cool.
Let's give the speaker.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. And please connect.